Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Remember Who You Are podcast, where we discuss powerful and transformative plant medicine experiences. I'm your host, Ruger Abair. I run Mexisoul, a plant medicine retreat center in Mexico, and I am here today with my guest, Stephanie. Stephanie is a mother of 4 beautiful children, and she lives in Salt Lake City. Which I find incredible, she's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and beyond that, I wrote this biography of her, but she's someone that I find incredibly brave, courageous, and driven. She's overcome a lot of her own fears, and she's someone that I truly enjoy speaking with. She always is seeking answers. She's incredibly supportive of others, and her favorite color is also pink. So let's dive into our conversation. Is there anything else you would like to add to that right now, Stephanie?
It sounds like you covered it, Ruger, for a good intro. So thank you.
Great. So during this podcast, we are talking about powerful or transformative plant medicine experiences. But usually how we start is to discuss, some of the things that led you here in the first place, some of like your beliefs or perspectives or things that have happened to you or whatever you kind of want to go into with that.
Okay. So, I'll start with at age 29 that my biological father, who I barely knew, I should say I knew him, but spent very little time in my life with. My mom left him when I was 3 because he was an alcoholic. And he passed away when I was 29. And that really started to kind of bubble the emotions that had been suppressed and just kind of, I always looked at my life at that point as a young mother that I was like, wow, I just really was blessed to get through my young life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then this happened and it was like, oh, okay. I'm experiencing depression for the first time, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts at that time. And so that started 25 years of therapy, once or twice a week, sitting on a couch, antidepressants, all different kinds of supplements, all different kinds of approaches to help me in any way to feel happiness and joy. And it was helpful through the years. It got me through the years of raising my children.
So let me ask you a question. With that death, how did that impact you overall in your life?
It definitely brought to my attention that I had suppressed a lot of emotions and that I had more pain than I was letting on. I was raised to be, we went through hard things, and my mom was married 3 times by this time in my life when her first husband passed away. And we were raised to be like, don't offend this husband, he may leave. Mm-hmm. Everything we were into perfection, to look like we were perfect, that on the outside, everything looked happy and fine. And when that happened, it was like, it started to bubble to where it was like, oh, I'm not fine.
So was your family a member of the church during that time, or was this something you found your faith afterwards?
Oh, I was born in the church. Mm-hmm. I have memories of being a young girl and a grandma who I'd go to church with and absolutely love the gospel.
Yeah.
And so, yes, from a young age, it's been a part of my life always.
Yeah. So there's probably a sense of trying to kind of like hide that and feel like everything's perfect and.
Absolutely. And that's definitely something that I've carried all the way till now, which is that it's like, in that time era, it was like my mom was looked at like, oh, you're a single mom coming to church with your kids. Oh, you've gone through divorce. And it's not really the gospel that judges that. It's the people and how they interpret the gospel, I feel.
Well, the gospel is pretty clear on not doing that.
Well, yes. I mean, the goal is to meet someone and to, I was a love child, and to meet someone and get married and to ideally get married in the temple and be sealed as a family and husband and wife for time and eternity. And yes, there's covenants that you make and in a certain way to live. And going through that, my mom definitely carried a lot of shame with that. And it was definitely passed down to me where it was like, I felt like, and all the way up till now, until I've gone through some of this, the healing of the plant medicine, of not feeling like it was enough.
And so that led you to the therapy.
Yeah, yeah. Because what happened is that I, as a young girl, and I was like, oh, if I marry the perfect guy, and we get married in the temple, and I do everything to control and keep everything perfect, my life will be perfect. I won't have a divorce. I won't have any of my children make choices that would be like hard on me as a parent, which is ridiculous. It's their life, it's their journey. And so, yes, so when my real dad passed away, it just started to that's kind of started the depression. And then through the years, as my kids made their own choices through their agency, was some of the best things that ever happened to me, because I was trying to control all of their lives so that I would have this perfect family, which I do. I have a beautiful, perfect family, but trying to control, like, not making any mistakes that I would be ashamed of or that would be embarrassing to me. In 2012, I had like a 6-month period. It wasn't even 6 months. It was literally from April to July. So what is that? 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son come home from a mission and get pregnant with his daughter, with his wife, who's our beautiful daughter-in-law, and we have beautiful grandchildren from. And my daughter's missionary had to come home from his mission because they didn't take care of things that they should have before she went. And I had my third child, who I adore, who I wouldn't change a thing about, come out. And then the same day, sorry, did you want to ask me something?
No, and then this is the point where you realized that the control wasn't working.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, because it was like, but I mean, I was in resistance for a bit. I was angry with the Lord. I was like such a victim of all of this, because it was like, wait a minute, I've done everything I could in my mind. It was this crazy thing, but it was like growing up as a child and feeling like we weren't enough. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm going to do everything that I can to be enough. And so I really viewed that time in my life that it was like God saying, you're not in control. And I'm going to allow these things to happen to you so that you can learn and grow from these experiences and become more compassionate, more loving, more accepting, less judgmental, and become a better person. And at the time, I mean, but I was really in that place of like victim. And I remember sitting in church one day, and it was talking about a lesson where a third of God's children left Him in our belief, and I think this Christian belief too, and even maybe Catholic belief. You know, there's lots of churches with that. That they were talking about how a third of God's children left Him and went with Satan, and I was sitting there going, it was like it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, Stephanie, who do you think you are that you could have like dodged all of this stuff, and yet God went through this same pain of losing children in ways that was painful to Him. I didn't lose my children. I lost control of my children. And through the process was like, finally, I just had to get to a point, and this is so freeing and so amazing, where I was like, I don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks anymore. Because I was so into everyone's approval and keeping the facade and keeping this image and trying to be perfect, which was honestly probably pushing people away, because it's just like, you're not authentic. You're not real. You're, and so it was definitely a very liberating time. And
I have to share a similar experience with you that happened with my parents. Because so I also grew up with a very like kind of fundamentalist faith based religion, and um, same parents, very 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 controlling. And it's interesting because you know my mom, right? So I don't know if
yes,
this came up at all, but it was the same type of thing. Very much control, very much of that. Never feeling good enough, not necessarily because of religion itself, but because of the indoctrination of people and how they interpret religion. But it finally came to like a breaking point in our family in the same similar way. So I think in the same span of like 2 days or 3 days, I think I gotten my second DUI. My Katie decided to get married when she was 18 and still in high school. And then there was my other sister that it was something involving like alcohol or a fight or something like that. And my parents also reached a breaking point where it's just like, okay, we're just gonna like love our kids, and the purpose is to make them just be happy. Like that's what
totally.
we're gonna do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. And we're here to learn to be like God.
Yeah.
We're here to learn how to love our children like him. And he lets us come down here with agency and he still loves us no matter what. And so it was like and then it was so cool because then you become fierce
Mm-hmm.
about loving them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't mess with my kids. Because as a mother, you're like, you kind of go to the edge there where you're like, okay, oh my gosh, this is hard. This is huge. It was big. But it was like, but it also offered the opportunity to be like, I don't give a rat's ass about what anybody thinks about me. And I love my children and I've got their back and I will always be here for them. And so that and it wasn't beautiful in the beginning because it was, of course I was like, I of course made my son feel like, oh, what you did was such a shameful thing. And then once we had, this beautiful baby, which they actually lost the first baby, it was hard too, because it was like, you may have thoughts of like, why did this ever happen? And then it was like, well, here's a little lesson to just kind of help you learn some more. And so we lost that first baby at 20 weeks. Her water broke and lost the baby. The baby couldn't make it. It was not developed enough. And so they're still healing and we're loving them. And I'm really thankful for everything that I've gone through
Mm-hmm.
because um, we'll always be there for them and to help them through as life goes on too.
Yeah. Something else you said that stood out to me a little bit is that you were very much stuck in that victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I do have a different kind of interpretation of spirituality and God. I don't kind of like using that word because I think it has too many connotations, but I definitely have a belief and a faith. And when you said that a third of the people decided to separate and follow Satan, what I view on that is that when there does come a time in someone's life where this happens, they have a choice to make. And they can make that choice to keep going forward and choose love, or they can make a choice, which, and this is what I believe is following Satan, is to stay and go in that victim mentality, and they can stay in that for the rest of their lives. And it's, oh, there's just another excuse and there's another thing, and then they're not willing to give up that control.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just this past year after, because my journey started with you, with Mexisoul, with the ceremonial plant medicine, um, in September 2024, after I'd
Mm-hmm.
sent my son in April before that. And when I started to go through it, things started to open up. And I actually went through a faith crisis in this past year. And
Yeah.
throughout this whole process, I was like, my goal is to stay active. I'm sealed to my husband in the temple. I'm sealed to all of my children. We've raised our children in the gospel, and I'm like, I have no intentions of changing that. But right now, I'm having a faith crisis, and so, and so a little one happened back then, but a really big one happened in the last year.
Yeah.
But it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, let's talk about just a little bit more on that, of what led you, because I'm curious if there was something like a tipping point that brought you here in the first place. So you had struggled with a lot of depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
You'd been in therapy for 25 years. You at some point had realized that the control method wasn't working. And, you'd also spoke to me about kind of a lot of unhealthy patterns from that I think had probably been inherited from your parents. So
Yeah.
what was the impetus that led you to do and try this in the first place?
So, so after all of that happened with my kids, we moved many times, and there was something else that had happened in my marriage that is healed now, but it threw me back into, oh my gosh, gotta keep up the facade, gotta keep up the image, gotta keep up everything straight up and great with us,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't. And so we moved a bunch because when all that stuff happened to our kids, one of the families lived like right across the street in the neighborhood with us. And it was like, okay, we just need a fresh start. And so, I'd been wanting to move for years. And so we did. And so it started a process of living in about 6 different places and going from, they're called wards,
Mm-hmm.
church.
Yeah.
And so in the last one where we are now, my husband was called to be in the bishopric. It's called the bishopric. So there's bishop and counselors, and he was one of the
Mm-hmm.
counselors. And then all of a sudden it just like completely amped it was like, I'm just sitting here thinking like, if I have an addiction I have obviously an addiction to what I was doing
Uh-huh.
in keeping up this facade.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, so I've felt like I kind of got it under control with my kids, so I didn't have to be so in control of stuff. And it's like, oh, awesome. So now I've got to be the perfect wife because my husband's in the bishopric. And it just like, it just was like, I don't know what would be the word. Like, it just was
It's impossible for one.
Right. And yeah, so I'm sitting here and I'm like going into church and I'm sitting on the bench alone, or people would sit by me. I wasn't alone, but I'm just sitting there going, smiling, we're good. And it's like, no, I'm not good. Like, I am literally holding my crap together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not expressing any of this to my husband because you don't do that, because then I might go through a divorce like my mom did. And so we went through that period of time. And the February before Jordan went in April, and then I went in September.
Okay.
Anyway, there was a night and I could not make love to my husband. And I was like, what the heck? What's going on? What is going on? And so
You're still allowed to do that in the church.
yes, that's why we have so many beautiful children and families. Yes, of course.
I guess that's encouraged.
So anyway, so this experience hit, and my husband was like, "Honey, what can I do? How can I'll do anything to help you and support you in this." And so I went to what was I went to like it was called the Rewilding down in southern Utah.
Right.
And it was just like it was a very mild thing. The only thing that they did there was hape. But before I went, Sunday dinner before, my kids said, "Do you know what they do down there, Mom?" And I said, "I think I do." But I said, "I'm not sure." But I've been on the couch for 25 years and on antidepressants, and I have made it through those years with suicidal thoughts, and I'm still here. And I think God is going to be okay if I do what I need to do to get out of this dark space and start feeling joy in this life.
Good for you.
Thank you. So that was kind of the start of it. And then Jordan came to me and said, Mom, I'd like to go to Mexisoul. This is something I'd like to do for myself. And I was like, great. So we sent him, and I watched him come home and watch his beautiful experience. And by September, I felt good for a bit after the rewilding. But in September, I was sitting in my kitchen one morning, and our fall gets really busy with beautiful trips. This year it's to San Diego and then Hawaii and Boston. And I just sat in my kitchen thinking about, oh, I got to get my Christmas tree up. I got to do all the mom things in preparations for the holidays. And I'm sitting in my kitchen and I can't even stop crying. And I don't even want to do any of it. And everything came down big time. And I was really in a place of, I don't even know if I want to be here anymore. Yeah. And here I have this beautiful, beautiful life. But I was that low. And so I went to the chiropractor that morning, who has been to ayahuasca retreats. So he'd kind of been talking about them for months, a little bit here and there. And Jordan had been and had shared his beautiful experience. And so I went from the chiropractor that morning to Jordan's house, and I said, Joe, help me sign up for Mexisoul. I am going now. And he did. And he goes, are you going to ask Dad? And I'm like, nope, I'm going to book my flight, and then I will talk to your dad. And I know he'll be supportive because he's already told me, but I'm like, I finally had the nerve to do it. And I knew that I needed to do it because I literally was sitting in my kitchen going, it was the lowest I had ever been. And so I signed up and told my husband about it. And we were prayerful about it. We actually went to the temple together where because I really have handled this in a way that it's like, this is between me and God.
Yeah.
Period. And in Utah, psychedelics are legal, and meaning psilocybin. I don't know all of it, but things are changing.
They are?
A little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Psychedelics they were put in a bill at the last session. I have never smoked, drank, or done drugs, so I'm not going to talk like I'm like. So when I say that THC, I don't know if I'm saying THC, pot, weed, cannabis, are those all the same thing? I don't know, but I know that they're legal if you have like a card. So I don't. Right. I'm saying it that way so that I don't quote it wrong. Mm-hmm. So things are changing, and so we went to the temple together so that we had our own peace of mind to know what I was doing and to feel good about it. And so we went, and on the way home, we were in the car driving home, and it was like, we both feel great about this. And so feel good about it. And my husband has been, he isn't currently in the bishopric. He wasn't in the bishopric when this, I don't know if it really would have mattered. You know what I mean? He still would have felt the same way, but he's been so supportive and that's been amazing. Yeah.
I wonder if God receives that many prayers about whether or not they should go to an ayahuasca retreat.
I don't think so.
Well,
I don't know if we I don't know if I specifically prayed about, but I guess we did. Yeah, we did. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, then the parts that I love talking about, and they're not always the most pleasant experiences, but I really like hearing about the experiences themselves. So.
Okay. Do you want me just to start from the beginning?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Jog my memory. Okay. So my first retreat was an ayahuasca retreat. And I remember going into it in the Osho hut, which is this beautiful, beautiful space. And with Umberto, and never have done anything like this. and it was all great. I was doing good, and the lights went out, and I was like, "What is this?" I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, "Oh my gosh," because of my upbringing. I'm like, "Am I going to be taken away to hell?" I don't. I like. I was nervous, and not nervous because his face was nervous, but just from like what just not knowing and but if I look back on that night, with that experience, I was definitely in resistance, um, and I hung in there, stayed inside of the Osho, and it felt like forever. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to my room.
Yeah.
And Krista came up to me and she's like, "Are you sure you don't want to stay with us?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done." Like I was just, and I went back and I went up in my room and I had the worst night ever. It was a poor choice to choose to go to my room. I punished myself, made it harder than it needed to be. I missed the joyous part at the end of the night. I know, but I look back on that experience now and I'm like, I don't beat myself up about it because I'm like, it was the opener,
Yeah.
just kind of like opening things up.
Well, and so much
Yeah,
credit to you too for this is so far out of your comfort zone. I mean, even for me, the first ceremony I ever did, I was open to it. I was committed to it. But even just the entire kind of process, you have a shaman and you have a, tobacco smoke and then there's music and the drum. It's kind of like, even for me, who was kind of willing to do anything, I mean, it is something, I mean, just something very far outside of your comfort zone.
yeah. And I had done a little bit of integration before I came,
Hmm.
and I don't know if that was super helpful in a way because it was like to hear the way that experience was like. So I was like this the whole time. Abuelita, grandma or Abuelita, will you be gentle with me, please? So not long. I'm like, will you be gentle with me? Because I'm like, I'm not ready to go and just I was nervous. So that was my first night. But it was, if I look back on it, it was such a beautiful setting and it was safe and yeah, it was beautiful. But it was just I'd never experienced anything like this and knew nothing about it. And people would always say to me, "You're so brave," and I'm like, I I don't feel that brave. I don't feel that brave. Now, the third retreat going, I'm like, oh, I feel brave now because I know what I'm in for, you
Yeah.
know? So, anyway, but that next morning when I went to bed, I was like, okay, I got to talk to Ruger or Krista. Reached out to you guys the next morning and I just said, okay, I'm kind of struggling. I need to kind of talk to somebody. And because I don't know if I was thinking about going home. I maybe was a little bit,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to because I knew why I was there. And so I ended up talking to you, and you were like, I think I would maybe be able to relate to you. So we had a talk, and it was so beautiful just to be able, because you just nailed it on the head, which was I was just dealing with the guilt or shame or fear of doing plant medicine and with my religious belief and being like, oh my gosh, because in
Yeah.
in our faith, the LDS faith, we have what's called the word of wisdom, which is no alcohol, no smoking, no drugs, no hot beverage, coffee or tea. So here I am, I'm like, I'm taking some ayahuasca in Mexico. And I was just like, it was kind of was coming on. And I just was like, I don't know why I'm feeling this. I'm anxious. I'm like, and so it was just beautiful to be able to me through it and go, okay, and it really helped me to be able to
Well,
stay.
I remember that conversation too, because I remember telling you that, yeah, it's like let yourself feel kind of guilty and afraid and that, just let it go because it's perfectly understandable to be able to feel those things given like your upbringing and to even honor that as like a protection of, the idea of it, but be aware of it and then just kind of like, okay, like let yourself kind of feel that some of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome. Yep. That's when I knew that we would be friends for a very long time.
Awesome.
So it was so good. Yeah. It was great. So if I look at that other the retreat, the next ceremony that happened was Satori, and it was beautiful. That heart opening medicine, and I remember sitting in the Osho again, and it's just so to take the medicine and to lay back and to relax on a yoga mat, and then to open my eyes and to look around, and just literally the room, I have chills, felt like a warm minky couture blanket around
Mm.
me.
The entire
Just,
room.
yes, yes, just like absolutely like enveloped in warmth and love, and it was just beautiful. And I was sitting there, and Krista was like dancing around the musicians in the room, and I was like, "What?" And actually, no, it wasn't what I was. It was beautiful, but what was happening was that I could tell that she was going to be walking over to me, and inside me, I was like, "No, no, no! Don't come over here and give me any love."
Hmm.
Like I had mom issues at the time, and I mean, I was a love child, and I think I just grew up feeling like, I know I ruined your life. I know that your life went a different course. My mom loved me, and she never said those things to me, but I kind of felt that way.
Yeah.
And when Krista came over, and she came over to my mat just to see, just to kind of hold my hand, and to see how I was doing, I just laid my head down in her lap and just wept like a baby. And just, it felt so good to feel that love that was
Hmm.
from the ceremony, and that was in the room, and that was with everyone there. Um, and that was definitely an opener too, to being like, okay, this feels good to like let people love me, and let
Hmm.
it in. Yeah.
What were some of the like just because you're taking a psychedelic, like what was some of the stuff that was coming up for you during this first retreat?
I think the biggest thing was, honestly, was it was just felt so good to be with people, to be in a safe place, to be vulnerable, where I could love two 35-year-old men next to me that are the same age as my son. And it was my son. And I just remember that was so healing, to be like, I couldn't wait to come home and see my kids, and, and to be connecting with connecting with people and being vulnerable. I really had isolated myself because I had gone through pains and hurts, and I was just like, once again, if I can manage and control, if I just so I isolated myself.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not available for that, or and I really had just like I had isolated myself from women in my neighborhood, that which there's lots of things that go on in the church,
Hmm.
activities and stuff. And I allowed myself my few select friends that I felt comfortable with. And even there would be days where I'd be like, no, I'm not up to seeing them. I'm not together. Don't have my crap all together. And I really had just kind of closed myself off. So if I look at this retreat, when I went home after, and they tell you that you're in the medicine for 45 to 60 days after. And I can remember coming home, and we were laying in bed, and this is PG rated, right? And so,
Hmm.
and kept coming home and laying in bed watching TV, and I could not lay close enough to my husband, and have his arms around me, and being held and loved. And so really the first retreat honestly just opened up my heart
Mm.
to feeling worthy to be loved. That's probably what the biggest thing that I got from it.
Thank
It's
you for
awesome.
sharing that.
You're welcome. It was awesome.
All right, so that was your first overall experience with plant medicine. At the beginning, you wanted to leave, which is pretty normal. And then you kind of push through it. There's similarities between sometimes people's first experience and like what you had mentioned at the beginning, where you're kind of at this crossroads. It's like, okay, here's the challenge. It's like you can choose. you're kind of got awareness of what's going on. There's like control and fear and worry and all of these kind of like things that might be holding you back, and then it's your choice. Like you can continue, and you have there's a couple different directions you can go.
Yeah. I would say to my husband, and my husband's like Capricorn, Aries, and I'm like Gemini, Scorpio, so I'm like intense and I'm like out there for him. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
say to my husband, I know this is going to sound dramatic, but this is life or death.
Yeah,
And that's how I viewed it. Because I sat in my kitchen that night, that day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have been here. It scared me to death that day. I'm like, I have been here way too many times, and this is the lowest I have been. It scared the crap out of me.
yeah,
So I honestly was like, okay, go take a warm shower back in your room, take self-care, and the facilities are so beautiful, and everything's so beautiful, and you guys take such good care of us so that we can pull up our bootstraps again the next day and be like, I'm in.
yeah,
And literally, but it was like, it honestly, that was kind of my saying in kind of fun, was like, this is life or death. Like,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Cool. Well, let's continue with some of your other experiences, and I'm looking forward to hearing if you'd like to share them.
Okay. Yeah. So the next one, which was so exciting, was the first psilocybin retreat
Mm-hmm.
with Krista, which was like, can't miss it, like going. And then to get there, and Umberto was there with the musicians, was like on steroids. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then Katie, your beautiful sister, oh my gosh, I love her. She was so instrumental in so many ways with the Hoppe facilitating and so much more to her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that So the first night, and thank goodness it was so gentle and so cute and fun. My first mushroom ceremony, because I was like, okay, here we go. Doing a pretty good dose. It's gonna. I'm like, I've heard that it's gonna, be something. And so the first mushroom ceremony was golden teachers, and my first experience, and I'm comparing it to my next one, so I know it was just this cute, fun little experience for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, I still felt. What I mean by that is that we did Hoppe, which drops you in and just you feel grounded, you feel calm, and it was so beautifully administered by Katie, excuse me, and then we took the mushrooms, and um, and then you lay back and just allow yourself to drop into the medicine. And it literally was like a room filled of like a black background with every color that I love to wear, like pink and all of the neon colors. And they were just like all these cute pinwheels. And I felt, anyway, it was just lots of visual, and it felt happy and it felt fun. But I do remember, just it was such a gentle way. My experience was with that time. That's kind of my memory of it. But I do remember at the end of it, at the end of the night, feeling at peace and feeling love, and felt comfortable to go forward with the week, which was really a
Mm-hmm.
blessing because there was more stuff to come for me. Um, and then the next night was Satori, and I kind of went in with a little bit of an expectation, and it was like, so as I went into it, I was like, okay, this is feeling a little different. Okay, stop comparing. Why are you comparing? And but what happened with it was beautiful because I was sitting there and I was feeling the love, and I was feeling it. But once I stopped comparing it to my first experience of it, I sat there and I'm like, if you are not feeling connected with people, maybe you should get up off of your mat and go reach out to the brothers and sisters that are in this room, and go be there for people. So that was really cool. And I and had an experience with a gentleman that was there where I was basically ended up being kind of like standing in place for as his mom,
A
because
motherly
he's also,
figure.
yeah, motherly figure, and he knew that I had a gay son, and he's gay, and so it was just very healing this conversation and healing for me. It was just beautiful to be able to um, extend myself, and reach out to people and be
Mhm.
vulnerable. And and then after that, I walked around and I ended up laying on Luisa's lap. I guess I just kind of I went and I went over by Luisa and I just um, ended up laying on her lap. And as I thought about this experience last night, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just weaving into this beautiful experience because she was in the next retreat with me that I just got back from. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a minute. But anyway, so, um, and then of course it was, that was kind of the Satori experience in that retreat that I remember. It was beautiful. 2 days later was the Enigma mushroom ceremony. And it was quite different than the first golden teacher experience.
Yeah.
It was,
I mean, sometimes it's the type of the strain of the mushroom psilocybin, but also sometimes it's your own, whatever's going on internally.
yeah, yeah. So, and it was new to me, the mushrooms, but even if I look at another with this last retreat, yes, the medicine gives you what and takes you where you need to go. And so, Enigma, the mushrooms, um, I went really deep and felt so loved, felt so supported. And during that part of the ceremony, and as it progressed, I mean, I'm a tough cookie. I've decided as far as like letting emotions go. I didn't
Yeah.
realize this. I'm a real crier. Like I cry all the time. So I'm thinking, what's the deal? Why can't I? But when it comes to like those deep seated emotions, it was like, oh man, they're not coming up like as quick, like I definitely held a lot in. And towards the end of the ceremony, I said to Katie, I said, I'm so exhausted and I feel like I'm coming out of the medicine and I know I'm not done. I know I haven't let go. I haven't done what the medicine wants to do with me. Been in resistance to it. I can feel it. I know I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And Krista had come over to me at one point, and so I got ahead of myself a little bit. So I was out on the lawn, and so Krista came out and took care of me and gave me, drink and got me some energy and took me in on the mat, and I laid down. And I just remember when I went back in and laid down, I put my head down off of the mat on the floor, and I just was like, and this is how much resistance I was into letting go of it. It was so much was suppressed and just pushed down so far that I was like, I'd rather die. I laid my head down and I literally had my head on the floor, just like I didn't even lay on my mat. I just went to the floor and I just said, I'd rather die than go through this emotion all of this that I need to go through. I'd rather die. And, um, and so it was almost like at that point, at like that complete surrender,
Surrender.
absolutely, that I was like, I could feel that I needed to go up and get up and go to the restroom. And, and you're supported and helped with whatever you need. And when I came back out, I saw Katie and I said, Katie, I'm coming out of the medicine and I cannot come out feeling like this. And it was near sunset. It was at the end, it was getting close to the end of the day. And we probably started about noon. And so when I came out, we sat down at the little table that's just outside of the Osho. And Katie sat and listened to me. And I talked about an emotion and a trauma that had happened to me that was like happened at the age of 12. And I had told a fib to my dad, and he was a busy businessman, and he would drink at the end of the day. He was never drunk, but he was probably had the edge taken off. And I lied that after school that I was at a girlfriend's, but I really walked by a boy's house. And then I ended up not having a ride home, and the lie just kind of kept growing because I was like, nobody can give me a ride home, and just so when I got home, my dad called me downstairs, and I don't know where my mom was. I don't know where any of my siblings were. And I went down there and he asked me, "Where were you?" And I lied. And he took his hand and slapped me across the face, at least, like back and forth, at least until I peed my pants.
Mm.
And I had never, that was like, that's something that came up with the ceremony. And, um, and so it felt so good to be able to talk about it. It was, and it was scary to talk about, but now I've talked about it so many times since then because I finally like let it come up and now it's like, and I don't really talk about it anymore because it's done and forget, um, that's the next retreat. Anyway, but so while I was talking to Katie, I was like, I had asked for Hoppe before we talked. She said, let's talk for a minute. So I said, okay, I need to run to, after I was done talking, I said, I need to run to the bathroom, run to the restroom again. So I went in there and I wasn't out of the medicine. And I sat in that stall and Krista had told me to, when I went back in to lay on the mat and I just was like, I want to die. Well, part of that, when I laid back for a minute and I said, I was thinking about all of my ancestors. She came over, she said, you're doing healing for your ancestors, your family. So I was thinking of everybody in my family, like, everybody and like telling them I love them and just going through all of the faces and the names and everybody. And I always felt I was the oldest and I was kind of given the responsibility to take care of all my siblings. And I actually always felt responsible for my mom's weight that she carried too.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am in this bathroom stall, and I'm like, okay, I have thought of everybody I could think of to heal. I freaking want to be done with my ceremony. I'm ready to come back to the light. I'm thinking this, and I look up to this guy in the bathroom stall, and I'm like thinking of everybody, and I remember saying, Heavenly Father, if there's anyone in my family that needs me to purge for them, I will. And it was just another time of just complete surrender, like just like I will do whatever I can. And then all of a sudden it literally was like turn the page. It was like I'm like, Katie, oh my gosh, I'm back. Oh my gosh,
Mm.
Katie, I'm back. And um and it just was like the ceremony, the work, the surrender was done. And I went out and I still had her do the Hoppe because I was out of the medicine and I wanted to still feel like I was in that space to enjoy the sunshine that was out, the sunset that was coming, and and to have a beautiful ending to the ceremony that day because I hung on to the very last second of not surrendering and letting go.
Yeah.
And and so after the Hoppe, I mean I hugged Katie. And then I don't know if you remember this, Ruger, but you had walked out of the Osho out the back door towards the Jumanji, that breezeway. And I just looked up at you. I had so much love. And I just was like, Ruger, I need a hug.
I remember that part.
And so it was just, it was beautiful. And yeah, so if I think about that, yeah, that was just, I'll tell you though, the real thing that came was when I got home. Talk about how you go home and you're still in the medicine and that you can have downloads. I got home and something came up with my mom and my sister. They were doing their stress and I was starting to worry about all of them. And I went like this. And I hadn't thought this at the retreat, but it came in loud and clear. That isn't mine.
Mm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, thank you. I've spent so much of my life carrying
The burdens.
the burdens of being the oldest child, carrying all of those burdens for my mom's marriages and divorces, and yeah, all of it. And it was just like all of a sudden, it was like, that's not mine. That's not mine. And not in a mean way, but it's like, it's not mine. I love you, but it's
Yeah.
not mine.
No, I mean, you're giving it back.
Yeah.
with love.
Oh, yes. Totally. Totally.
It's interesting too, before we get into the last one, it's just like that resistance of feeling related to some of those traumatic events. It's almost like it's almost worse to go. It's this feeling of fear that it's going back to that is a feeling that feels as worse as like you're going to die.
Oh, yeah. 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 It's crazy what we do to stay in pain
Yeah.
and not thinking that we're doing that. We think we're protecting ourselves, but we are causing so much more pain for ourselves.
Well, let's get into your third experience.
Okay.
I'm actually looking forward to this because I know the least amount about it because it was a women's retreat and I was not allowed to be there for obvious
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. This one is like the mother of all mother retreat. I mean, seriously, like beautiful. And they're all beautiful, but this one was really powerful. So, yeah. So the last retreat that I talked about was in March. And then I started to hear word that there was going to be a women's retreat, and I'm like, oh, please let me know. I want to be on the list.
Yeah.
And I think it was in June. I was at a soccer game and I got a text, and I'm like, it's opened, registration's open, and it was like I literally at the soccer game was like signing up because I was like, I just didn't want to like. I felt like it was going to be something that was going to fill up quickly, and didn't want to miss it.
And it
And
did.
what?
And
And
it
it
did.
did, yeah. And because it was like, are you kidding me? Krista, Louisa, Katie facilitating? Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. And it was. So, yeah. So the difference before this retreat, though, I could feel some resistance. And I was like, but it was more like, oh my gosh, I can feel that, like, it's going to be big. And I'm like, I don't want to throw up. I hate to throw up. I haven't thrown up. And it was interesting before this retreat because you know when there's something big going to happen in your life
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you're going, okay, why is that happening? Meaning, I was going to be packed the week before. I overpack. It's crazy. And I had all this stuff come up like the weekend before, and I didn't get packed until 2:30 in the morning. And when I went to bed that night, I didn't feel well. Took some medication for something. Woke up with hives, and was like, "What the crap? Like, I'm gonna miss my flight.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? You know?" It all worked out. My husband, I got to the airport, and I was like, literally at 8:33, and boarding started at 8:50. And I got on the plane, and I got on there fine, sat down, and closed my eyes, and just sobbed,
Mm-hmm.
cried, just like tears, just like trying to regulate my central nervous system, just crying. And I kind of was worried. I'm like, I better get a hold of this because they may make me get off the plane because they might be like, she's Fruit Loop on the plane or something, or like we're gonna have to turn around halfway to Guadalajara and take her back.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just kind of just was like, and then it stopped, and my sweet son who went to the first retreat in our family with you guys, Jordan. He texts me, and I sent him a picture of myself. And then about 5 minutes later, because I turned on one of Umberto's songs from the retreat and just let the tears roll. And I'm like, it's already beginning. I mean, that's how powerful this women's retreat was. So get there, and the first night, and I think, I'm not worried about going into another mushroom ceremony because I've done some.
Yeah.
And Golden Teachers was the first mushroom ceremony. And oh my gosh, they're all different.
Yeah.
And before I went into it, there was another gal there that is experienced with plant medicine from Alaska. And she said, if you feel like you're like, are not sure, like what the medicine, if this is your medicine, you can put your hand on your heart and say, medicine, is this my medicine? And I learned something that night in that ceremony, because I was like, it was totally different than my first experience with Golden Teacher in a past retreat. I mean, past ceremony. I was in shadow the whole night.
Mm.
I felt like a movie where the cold mist comes over you and you can feel it and you're breathing. And I'm trying to like just breathe through it because some of it just feels good just to ruminate. I just like was, is it ruminate? Is that the word that I might be looking for? To just like, it felt good to feel that darkness moving out too, that with the
Mm-hmm.
shadow. But then it was like, holy cow, I'm like in this and it's like a lot. And I'm like, is it, and I got to the point where like, is it mine or is it, and, um, and so, um, I kind of learned that night that, um, I definitely was in resistance, but I learned that I'm like, I feel like I'm picking up on I'm picking up on a lot of other energy, like a lot of other energies, as far as like, but this is what was happening, the lesson. Well, it's okay if I don't take care of me first. I'll let this sister take care of herself. She's going through a lot. And so I'd sit there and breathe and stay in my, in the process. And then somebody over here was going, and then I'd be like, it's okay, I can wait. And so I just kept waiting to take care of myself. I just let everybody kept going before me, and I can wait. And this mirrored me as a mom.
And probably the patterns in your own life.
Yeah, where it was like, um, I can do this when, and I can do this when. But I got married. I met my husband at 18. I got married at 19. So I have 3 kids that are single, and one's 35, 33, and 28. And I'm like this going, well, if I keep waiting for these kids to be married and on their own and not dependent on me, I may never choose me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, but I was definitely in resistance that night. It was like, I kind of felt like, and I did have the experience where I was like, I reached a point where I'm like, I just am exhausted. I'm going to go back to my room. And I went back to my room, and, um, and I was there for a little bit. And I remember that I'm like, you chose to come to this women's retreat to heal your your wounds with having relationships with women. And you just walked out on every one of those women in that room. And so I was like, get up, go back in, and go be there. And so I was dressed. I was just laying in bed in my covers. I got up and I went in, sat down, and we were at the point of sharing words and going around the circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there and I just was like, shared what my night was like, and it was rough. It was hard. And I was in resistance. I was like, oh my gosh, and I didn't expect myself to still be in resistance and holding it all in and not letting things go. And I didn't realize how much I suppress and hold in. So I go back in and I basically just share with the women that I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was sitting here, space was being held for me. And when it got too hard, I went back to my room and left you and didn't, and I said, and I'm here because I want to heal this piece in my life and have women in my life and have friendships and open my heart up to this again. So that was the first night. And then the next day, which I was like completely shocked because I've done Cambo before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking I'm going to get it and I'm going to breathe through it and not throw up and then lay back and be like, oh, that feels good. No. Oh my gosh. Katie's facilitating hop-based ceremony was over the moon. I mean, it was the most beautiful experience. I let so much emotion go. And I just remember after I went through it, some of the servers looked over at me and they were like, that was beautiful.
And this is
And I
combo?
combo. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've had combo and I was like shocked, but it was so powerful. So then fast forward, not fast forward, but the week had workshops like every day, three or four, I think there were 3 or 4 days in a row. And we were learning about our astrology, which my husband would be like, we don't believe in that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? The wise men had to follow the stars to find the baby Jesus. So I'm thinking, and my son, who is now in pilot school, my youngest son, he just said it on Sunday because my husband said it again. He said, Dad, the moon controls the tides. And so, I mean, it's like, and I'm like, I don't like rule my life by it,
Yeah.
but it was so instrumental that week in teaching me the strengths of myself, believing in myself, knowing things that maybe I didn't know about myself. It was amazing. And so we had an afternoon after going through like the workshops, and we ended up in the Oracle, and it was a day of basically like if we had any kind of masculine energy that had been like trauma for us, we had the opportunity to think of who those men were in our lives. And I had 3, and we put them in, we wrote them, and then we made these airplanes, and then we threw them into the fire. And there was beautiful drumming circle that got all of the emotions going to where we were eyes closed and we're like, just, beating up whoever it was. And I was like, oh, I didn't know how to have any emotion with him. Oh my gosh, and you too. Oh, and I thought I was okay with you. Nope. And just like the emotion got going.
Yeah.
And so we did this exercise, and it was beautiful. We looked in the mirror and told ourselves that we loved ourselves, which is really a very powerful exercise to do.
That sounds like an
And
influence of my sister.
yes. So then at the end of that, it was offered, if anybody wants to do Hape, we can. And I'm like, oh, I do, because combo shocked the heck out of me. And I'm like, it was so hard to get anything moving in mushrooms for me the first night, the mushroom ceremony, that I was like, yes, please. So there were 5 of us. And it was another beautiful, unexpected, moving experience with the Hape. I literally was sitting there in yoga position out in the sunshine in the middle of the oracle, not in the middle, but in the oracle. And when that was given to me, I literally, my whole body shook till my face went into my hands, and I bawled like a baby. And it was letting go of all of the pain of my father that I didn't know after my mom left him when I was 3.
Mm-hmm.
And my adoptive father, who at 12, with the trauma that I had with him, and then I had some with my husband. And it was just this beautiful moment to just let more go. And this gal from Alaska, she was there, and she put her hand on my back, and she just moved energy. And she said to me after, she said, you have so much packed down inside of your back, like energy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, thank you. I mean, so it's a beautiful process. So, well, what I was going to say about Satori, I'll say this, is the Satori was the next ceremony, and I remembered what my 2 ceremonies were like. So I was sharing with this sweet sister next to me because she had never done it. She wanted to know what it was like. So I'm sitting here sharing my experience of it like it's a cakewalk, somewhat. That Satori ceremony was probably one of the most intense Satori ceremonies I had ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember it being intense for myself, but it was like, wow, medicine does what the medicine's going to do. Yeah. So fast forward to the last mushroom ceremony. I'm sitting there, and and I can feel that I dropped in. And of course it's me. And with everything of the emotion with my trauma with my dad, I'm like, I better go to the restroom before I get into this because I'm going to interrupt this. So I wave down and Louisa comes over to get me. And now we're walking back to my room, Jumanji, which that's what I wanted that room because it would be close to the Osho and I could have my own space. So she took me over there. I walked in and she said, "You good?" I said, "Yeah." And I walked into the bathroom and I'm looking in the mirror and my face is completely transfigured. And I look like Jamie, who was in the March Psilocybin Retreat, who was sitting in yoga style in front of me when I was in my ceremony, heavy. And I'm like, and I remember telling her, you look like a beautiful healer, medicine woman. Like, oh my gosh. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, Louisa, oh my gosh. She goes, what? And I go, can you come in here? I feel like a little bit lightheaded because I was at the sink because I walked in and saw the mirror and I went up to the mirror and I was just in this moment. And she came up to me and put her arm around me and I said, I look like you. I said, oh my gosh, you sisters, you're my tribe. You're my sisters. And it just was like looking in this mirror. And the more that I looked, the darker my eyes got, the darker my hair got. And she just put her face next to mine. And it was just like this beautiful, beautiful experience of having this sister and feeling all of these sisters so healing and so beautiful. And I'm looking into them and I'm just sitting there and she's like, well, what do you want to say to her? And I just looked at myself and I'm like touching my face and I'm like, you are so beautiful. I love you. And it was just like this healing, beautiful moment. And so after this moment, Louisa went out. I took care of the bathroom. We went back. And she took me back to my mat and she said, you good? I said, yeah, I'm good. So I laid down and I said, medicine, show me what you want to show me. It was like, just, so I'm sitting there and I'm laying down because with that experience, I kind of felt like, am I like a healer? Am I like, I felt like, am I a healer? Of course I'm a healer for myself, but am I a healer, And so I'm sitting there and I'm laying there and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm feeling like I'm a medicine woman and I'm a healer. And I'm like, it would be good for me to stand up and ground with the earth. So I stand up and I'm having this experience and feet are planted on the ground right there in the middle of the pasture. And I'm standing and then I'm sitting there and I'm just like, taking in the sun and I'm just like, oh my gosh, in such complete like awe and gratitude and beauty. And like, it was so beautiful. And then I was like, I had talked to a sister about how am I going to ground during the wintertime? So I think in my head, I was like, she goes, well, you go find a tree, go hug a tree. So I'm like, I'm going to go hug this tree. So I step forward and I'm hugging this tree and I'm literally like leaning into the tree because I'm like, I'm in the medicine, and I'm like, so I'm laying there and I'm just hugging this tree and the sun is just, now I'm in front of the tree. So the sun's just in my face and I'm just like, oh gosh, just like, it's just healing me. And I am like completely connected with the earth and God and everything. And I am being healed. And I'm just sitting there and it was so beautiful. And I remember looking around at this point and so many sisters were in this group were from, had dark hair. And it was like they were all on their mats at that point, sitting yoga position. And I'm just like, holy crap. Like these are my tribe. These are my people, my sisters. Like all of a sudden I was like, I am ready to love and heal everyone.
Yeah.
Just felt like that. Lisa comes over because we're kind of being like, and she goes, okay, come on, you guys. Got a lot of ceremony. You got a lot of medicine ahead of you, ceremony, and you're using a lot of energy. So come back to your mats. And So anyway, so went back to our mats and I'm laying down and I'm like, okay, medicine, show me what you want to show me. And at this point, I'm like, show me if there's anything that I have that are gifts to heal, and sat with that and thought of, I think his name is Hector Wood, maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember, that did the healing for me. And I was like, but anyway, so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm breathing and I'm trying to relax. And I'm like, you know what? Because on that King Neptune card, the Oracle card, it also said, it's important that you take care of yourself and you do these things. This is good for you, but it's also good for you to go be vulnerable and to go be a part of a community in this card. So I'm like, and I could hear the sisters singing. So I'm like, I got to go back in. So I went back in on the mat that I was on originally and laid down. And the second half was completely opposite of what was outside, which I was grateful for that first part because it was like a gift I felt after the first night. It was like, okay, here's this beautiful gift. So the last part of this experience that I'd like to share was moving through a lot of shadow and um, and still in resistance to let go of deep traumas and deep emotions. And I reached a point where I was coming out of the medicine, and I asked Katie for Hape, and we had to wait until I had the strength to do it. And when we did it, I was sitting on the mat, and I had literally, TMI, been up to go to the bathroom nonstop because I was so worried that I was going to not only release emotion, but I was going to release because of my childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I may owe Mexisoul a couple of yoga mats and then maybe a yoga chair if you needed to send me a bill. But anyway, so she gave me the Hape, and no kidding, it went in and I breathed. Took that where you breathe through your mouth, and I just completely like released
Yeah.
and breathed through that and had the bucket because I really have never thrown up as a way of purging. But I was bringing up, coughing up Hape, and I don't usually do that, but so I was bringing up stuff, and I really think that kind of cleared my throat and talking, and because it's been so good to be able just to talk and to say how I feel just straight and not stammer, and because as a part of being slapped across the face, I've had. I've struggled with, like, literally my husband would ask me a question. I'd be like, he goes, what do you want to say? And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what to say. And it really was
Mm-hmm.
to honestly get the courage to be able to even talk because
Yeah.
this shit had been knocked out of me,
Yeah.
or the pee. So anyway, and so she did the other nostril and she said, you're going to need to hold it because it's dark in here now. So you just put it there when it's time. Took it, and another release.
Wow.
Crying into the bucket, and then it was pretty quick that it was like, oh my gosh, totally surrendered, everything released. And then I used to sing all the time, solos, and I grew up singing choirs, and I was like, what, I'm gonna go sit by the women around the music. And I just went and sat in a chair by him, and I didn't care that I was in my wet yoga pants. Went and sat down, and just started to just make sounds that harmonized or went with them. And while I did that, I released more. And it just was liberating just to release all of that. And, and, and then it wrapped up and was like it's finished, like the experience, like you did it. Went back to my room and changed, came back, and it was the most powerful mushroom ceremony I have ever had. It was beautiful.
Well, it's incredible how much trauma has an association with not just our feelings, our emotions, but also the body and how connected those are. That's something that
Totally.
I'm learning only like recently, but it was almost like not reliving. This is something I've told people too. It's not reliving, but it's like reviewing that experience from like a different, more conscious lens, and even the physical aspects of it. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, I can send you a bill for the yoga mat.
please do. I'm serious. I would feel very good about that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. So the last kind of part that I like to cover and touch on, and I think we've kind of been, touching on these little aspects throughout this podcast, but it's just what are some of the things that just stand out to you as far as your shift in perspective, the changes in your life, so if you would like to go into any of those.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the coolest experience that I had was getting off the plane after this last women's retreat. Husband picking me up at the airport and said, "We're going to go over. We got to stop by our son's house and the grandkids, and we're going to see the grandkids." And I walked in, and they weren't there yet. And I was sitting on the couch with my husband, and mom came home with 3 kids, and they ran in, and he one by one jumped into my arms and hugged me and kissed me like they have never before. They're a little bit more reserved with their kisses and hugs. Like they
Mm-hmm.
will, but they're not like have lovey-dovey all the time. And that night after my grandson came up and hugged me, my 6-year-old grandson, and then his older sister who's 8, she gave me a hug and a love, and they're usually very reserved. And then when she was done, my grandson said, "I want to do that again." And he jumped into my arms and put his arms around me and kissed me. And then the baby, who's almost will be 2 in February, she walked in the room and she said, "Mimi." And she ran towards me. And I had just read like that day or close to that time about it literally was that day on the plane somewhere that you know that your vibration's high. If animals want to be around you, if children want to be around you, like it was so I got on the airplane and this little baby just looked over at me and just was like, totally looking at me. I didn't even do anything. He was doing it to me before I even saw him. And
Yeah.
so my little granddaughter ran over and she's like, "Mimi." She ran up to me and jumped into my arms and just embraced her. And she was just hugging me. And I'll fast forward because I know we've had a really long chat today. But I played the song Yo Soy Dios, I think is how you say it. They sang it at the retreat. It's a celebratory song. And I turned that on and I danced in my son's living room with that baby in my arms, with my grandkids around me. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, who is this Mimi? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There was so much love. And the one other thing that happened that very week, we went to see leaves. I went 4 times last week. And the first time that I went out to see the fall leaves,
Mm-hmm.
we made a turn around the canyon, and there was a whole field of yellow, like the color of sunflower yellow. It was so beautiful that I got choked up at the beauty in my life and all of the healing that had taken place, and that I feel like depression and anxiety are a part of the past. I will be forever grateful
Mm-hmm.
for the experiences that I've had. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, you bet. Of course.
Thank you for being brave and doing it.
Of course, Ruger. If anyone has ever felt like me, and I can in any way inspire somebody or encourage somebody to take that leap, I'm here for them.
Awesome. Well, you cheated because that's my question that I ask everyone at the end is if anyone's considering doing this, what would you say to them?
Oh my gosh, don't hesitate. Go for it. It'll be the best thing that you have ever done for yourself and for your family and for everyone in your life.
Maybe the
Yeah.
most challenging too, but
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like anything. Like when you go through whatever we go through that's hard, it was always worth it. But while you're
yeah,
going through it, it's hard.
yeah.
But fun. Beautiful, beautiful place to be. Beautiful people to be around. Delicious food. And there's so much more that I didn't talk about. The pool, Temescal, the rooms, the horses, the agave, all of it. It's the only place I will ever go to do ceremony. And it's beautiful. And Ruger, thank you for creating this. So beautiful.
Thank you.